Baruchim Aboyim B'Shem Irgun Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov Zev Shlita, Hadlokas Neiros and Erev Yom Kippur. Whoever would like to have the great schus of sponsoring a shir, call Irgun Shir Torah at 718-851-8651.
This week I learned once again, Aruka Me'eretz Mida. We have a big Torah and a beautiful Torah. I started with a few simple questions and turned into a beautiful sugya, and also something that's good for Erev Yom to take home with you and discuss by the table. We started with the Shaila Bacha in the yeshiva, who his job was every Erev Shabbos. He lit the Neiros for the Bachim in the yeshiva. There's a few hundred boys in the yeshiva. There's no Rebbetzin on the premises, so he lights Neiros. He's Yaitz of the yeshiva. This is his first Yom Kippur on the job, and he asked me, does he light, and where do you light? To light in the dining room like he does every Friday afternoon makes no sense. No one's there, because no one eats on Yom Kippur. So I reminded him that your parents also don't eat on Yom Kippur, but they do light. But then the truth is, we need a hezbah. Why do we light Erev Yom Kippur if there's no Suda? As we'll see, Medina Gemara, the Ikka, Hadlokas Neiros is related to the Suda. If there's no Suda, why do we light? And if you do light, where to light? Then I had a question. Someone went to a Shabbos Tshuva Drush, and the Rav spoke about the Gesundel Licht, Ner Bori, and he didn't take this too well. He said, I don't like these new minhagim. Now, he assumed that the Gesundel Licht, because it has a Yiddish word to it, so it must be a European minig that some have. And it was a little distressing to me, because as we'll see, the Gesundel Licht is based on all the Rishonim, and the Ramah brings it without dissent. But there are some halachas about that as well. And the third question that really convinced me that we have to discuss this sugya, someone who was married that year, and he asked me that, Baruch Hashem, we got familiar with Hilchas Hadlokas Neiros. Then we had Yom Tiv has its own halachas. What's the halacha regarding Neiros on Yom Kippur? Because Yom Kippur is not Shabbos, but then again, it's not a regular Yom Tiv. So I was thinking, Niba v'la yoda ma niba. Because that's really the focus of today. Hadlokas Neiros Erev Yom Kippur is not like Shabbos. It's not like Yom Kippur, not like Yom Tiv. And as we'll see, there's probably 20 plus halachas specifically, uniquely for Ner Yom Kippur that we light on Erev Yom Kippur. So basically, we're going to learn Hilchas Hadlokas Neiros for Shabbos and show when it's different, Yom Tiv or Yom Kippur. But the truth is, the original question really needs focus. If you think about it objectively, why is it so pashut that you light on Neiros on Erev Yom Kippur? Now, you could do what you want, but to make a bracha, for what reason? The Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Chaf Hayim at Beis, basically says, Hadlokas Ner Shabbos Chayva. It's not just a hidur or kavod, it's a chiyuv. Why? Zok Rashi, Chayva, al kavod Shabbos, she'ein suda chashuva ela b'makam ar ke'ein yamama. Rashi is saying a well-known yisoid that a display of kavod is lighting Neiros. Even if you're not going to necessarily need the Neiros. A person makes a bris, he lights Neiros. By shul, by the Chazin's Amid, there's Neiros. So Rashi is saying that it's not kavod Shabbos to have a suda without Neiros. So you're doing it out kavod Shabbos, you light Neiros. Taisvis uses a different word, she'yisaid b'makam haner mishum oinig. Taisvis is a bit more practical, that when you eat in the darkness, you don't appreciate the food. You don't have the same pleasure. And since the mitzvah of oinig Shabbos, so we light Neiros to enjoy, to enhance oinig Shabbos. So whether it's kavod Shabbos or oinig Shabbos, both Rashi and Taisvis stress that Ner Shabbos, Chayva is linked to the Suda. And the truth is, we can understand that's why on Yom Tiv there is a Chiyuv of Neiros, because there's a Suda's Yom Tiv. The big question, of course, is Yom Kippur, there's no Suda. So who said there's a mitzvah of Neiros? How can you differentiate? So the emes is the Gemara in Erev and Daf Mem. There's a whole sug if you make a Shechianu on Erev Yom Kippur. After all, there's no kais. Shechianu is always linked to a kais, to a kiddush. So we'll soon see the Gemara says you do make alts the yoim. But the truth is, who said you light Neiros? If there's no kavod or oinig, why light? But then again, you could remember the third reason in Neiros Shabbos. The Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Chav Gimel Amud Beis, the Gemara says that famous Yisoid that you light Neiros Shabbos al Shalom Bayis. And Rashi explains it's a tsar to sit in darkness. Rashi in Daf Chav Hey explains if there's no ner, there's no shalom, shahoylech v'nichshal ba'afela. Now the Vel Taich is shalom bayis, you shouldn't fight with your wife. That's lav dafka. Rashi in both places not mention wives. Rashi means that it's a very peaceful atmosphere if you see where you're walking. And if it's dark and you don't see where you're going, that's not the shalom that Shabbos is supposed to bring into it. Rather, the Rambam in the end of Hilchas Chanukah says shalom bayis means kipshutai, not to fight with your wife. But whatever the case is, there's a third reason for Neiros Shabbos, and that is Shalom Bayis, to have that peaceful atmosphere. Oy bazoi, we could suggest, maybe that's why you light on Erev Yom Kippur. True, there's no kavod or oinig, but Shalom Bayis, Shalom. Yom Kippur is not just a Yom Tiv. The Mishnah Seif Taina says it's the biggest Yom Tiv of the year. Maybe you have to light out Shalom Bayis. But the truth is, we could even do better than this. Because if you look in the Gemara Shabbos, Daf Kuf Yotes, the Gemara darshan the pasuk in Tanakh, L'Kdosh Hashem Mechubad. What does that mean, L'Kdosh Hashem Mechubad? That's going on Yom Kippur, that there's no eating or drinking, but you're supposed to be Mechabed Yom Kippur with Ksus Nekiah. So it comes out that Yom Kippur, although there is no mitzvah of Suda, there is still covered Yom Kippur. So maybe you light Neiros, not out oinik, there's no Suda, maybe out covered. So 2 out of the 3 reasons might apply. So what do you do when you have a suffix? You look in Shas. There is a Beferish Mishnah, nothing less, regarding Neiros Yom Kippur. But when you learn it properly, you'll see it has no shaykhs to us. I saw one of the Gedolei HaPoskim writes a lashon, not in Bavli, regarding a bracha, because it's not in Bavli Yoshalmi. There's a Mishnah, but let's learn the Mishnah properly. Zog the Mishnah Psachim Daf Nun Gimel Amud Beis, Mokum Shahadu Nohagu Lahadlokas Neiros Erev Yom Kippur Madlikin. The place that the meaning is to light Neiros, you have to light Neiros. Mokum Shahadu Shaloi Lahadlik Ein Madlikin. So it seems that Neiros Yom Kippur is a Beferish Mishnah. But it's strange, it's totally in minig. That means at most it's only a minig to light on Erev Yom Kippur. If that would be true, then you can't make a bracha on a minig. We have the heilige minig, the Viyam of Aishanis. We don't make a bracha. So the Gemara in Sukkah, Daf Mem Dal, because you don't make a bracha on a minig. So if this Mishnah is the source of Neiros Yom Kippur, then you can't make a bracha. So what do you do when you have a shayla? You look in the Gemara. The Gemara right away begins explaining the Mishnah, the one and only pshat in the Mishnah. Not like we thought. The Mishnah is not talking about lighting Neiros l'kavod Yom Kippur. Zokte Gemara bein she'amru lahadlik, bein she'amru shaloi lahadlik, shneim ul davar echad niskavnu. There's a different purpose for lighting Neiros Erev Yom Kippur. So Rashi explains, as we know, one of the Isurim on Yom Kippur is living with one's wife, and therefore Chazal were concerned he might come to be oiva on Yom Kippur. L'chachmanu l'tzlan, the Tashmish Amita is one of the Isurim on Shabbos, on Yom Kippur. So one minig is light a ner in the bedroom, and then that will remind you that it's Yom Kippur. The other minig says punkt fakeret. If you light a ner in the bedroom, it's going to bring a taiva. Better don't light and stay away from problems. So both minhagim are focused on keeping kedushas Yom Kippurim. Yeah, light, not light. The ikka is kedusha and tahara on Yom Kippur. In fact, the Gemara says so beautifully, "Va'amech kulam tzadikim." Whatever you do, you're a tzaddik. If you light, you're worrying about kedusha. If you don't light, you're worrying about kedusha. It's a real va'amech kulam tzadikim. No, but comes out l'chayra that the only neir on Erev Yom Kippur is, we'll use that word shmira, reminder. But l'chayra, it's almost mefurish that besides that there is no mitzvah. So that means it comes out l'chayra that there is no mitzvah of lighting Neiros Yom Kippur like there is on Shabbos or Yom Tov. And the chiddush, of course, in this is that it's different than both Shabbos or Yom Tov. So now the shaila is, where do we get this that so pasha that there is a chiyuv? So you look into Rishonim, you'll see it's not pashut. The Mordechai in Psachim, Taf Reish Tes, one of the Rishonim, he says, Taka Yom Kippur, there's no bracha on Neiros, because the Mishnah most calls it a minig. In fact, the Mordechai in Yuma Perek Ches Ois Tavshin Chav Ches says that, oh no, maybe if it falls on Shabbos, Yom Kippur, Shabbos, then you light Neiros. But Stam Yom Kippur, there's no mitzvah. And the Radvaz in Chela Gimel Taf Ayin Vav explains why is there no bracha? Because it's only a minig. And just like Arava there's no bracha, so too Ner Yom Kippur. So that means we live b'toyos. There is no Hadlokas Neiros Yom Kippur like there is on a regular Shabbos or Yom Tov. Why? There's no Kavod or Einik Shabbos. However, the Rosh in Yuma, Perek Ches Ois Chav Zayin, writes V'yira sheyesh levarich al Hadlokas haner mishum shalom bayis. Like we said, or actually I got it from the Rosh, of course, that enechanami there's no Kavod or Einik Shabbos on Yom Kippur, but there's shalom bayis. And apparently shalom bayis is enough reason to make a chiyuv with a bracha. And we added l'chayr Kavod Yom Kippur is also true. That is mefurish in the Radvaz in Chelik Vav Beis Alafim Reish Tes. He Kamat says mefurish that since it's a mitzvah of Kavod Yom Kippur, you could light Neiros als that. Then the Radvaz asks, okay, you could light Neiros, but why do you make a bracha? Why, if the Mishnah calls it a minig, why is it different than a Rava that you don't make a bracha? So the Radvaz l'chayr says a very simple teretz. There's no chiyuv arava ever, clapping aravas. It's kulay minig. But Neiros, on Yom Kippur, at least there's a mitzvah on Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's an ikka, and therefore you make a bracha als the ikka. In other words, like a yeshloi ikka. Now, to me it came out a chiddush, because I think the teretz is more pashut. Rabbi Yisrael, let's think for a second. Makam sha'amru lahadlik, you have to light Neiros, als the shmira. Does that mean that there's no chiyuv to light als the Yom Tov? Chas v'sham, who said? There's a regular mitzvah to light als the Yom Tov, als Kavod or Einik, a Kavod or Shalom Bayis, and the Mishnah is mechadish a second lighting, light al Shmira. But once you're not concerned about the lack of Shmira by lighting, why can't we say there's a regular chiyuv midrabanan to light Neiros on Yom Kippur, no less than Shabbos and Yom Tov? And this, we'll soon see this. Asema says it's mefurish, but the Ramshik in the Tshuva and Yeridei Shin I involved says this. He spells it out that the shita that holds that you light an air in the bedroom, avad is a mitzvah in a dining room. The chiddush is you're not worried that you're lighting in the bedroom is going to cause a problem. But it comes out that the shita that holds that there's a mitzvah of Neiros Yom Kippur, the Rosh and Usiyatoi, it's the regular mitzvah of Neiros Shabbos and Yom Tov. The chiddush is there's a second adlaka that you do al shmira. But we can't forget that there are Rishonim, the Mordechai, that says there is no mitzvah. There is no chiyuv to light Neiros on Yom Kippur because it's not covered or oinig like by Shabbos. And the Maril, the Avi Minig Ashkenaz, and Erev Yom Kippur, Ois Yud Aleph, also holds like that you do not light Neiros with a bracha on Erev Yom Kippur. The Merivayel, the Talmud of Maril, and Kuf Tarik Aleph, also that's the minig. And you look in Shulchan Aruch, you're not so convinced that to make a bracha on Erev Yom Kippur. The Mechaber in two places, Reish Samach Gimel Hey and Taf Reish Yud, that's our sugi for today, Siv Beis, Yesh Mi Sha'im, you make a bracha on Hadlokas Neiros. But the Ramah is quick to add that Lamaisa, that the minig is an hour Medinais to make a bracha Erev Yom Kippur. The Kaf HaChaim, we see V'kot and Yud Beis, and there's a Tshuv Barichas and the Chazayin Avadia, that even Svardim follow the Ramah's minig, so both Ashkenazim and Svardim do make a bracha on Erev Yom Kippur. To me, what the Chiddush was, the Goyin both in the Bir HaGra, in Taf Reish Yud, And a Ma'aser Rav, Ois Reish and Aleph, insists that the minig is not to make a bracha on Hadlokas Neiros Erev Yom Kippur. So we have the following, that basically there's a machlokes rishonim if there's a mitzvah Hadlokas Neiros Yom Kippur. Our minig, Ashkenazim and Sfardim, except for the Gra, is that there's the regular mitzvah Hadlokas Neiros Yom Kippur, and a bracha is said. But I must be more specific, it's not a regular Yom Tiv. And now we're going to learn Hilchos Erev Yom Kippur Neiros, and you'll see how many halachas you could see difference between Shabbos and Yom Tiv. First of all, let's talk practically. We light with the bracha. Where do you light? So you're wondering, what's the shaila? I always light in the dining room. Why is Erev Yom Kippur different? Now you think about it, it could be different. You're lighting in the dining room because it enhances the Suda. Yom Kippur, there's no Suda. What's the purpose of lighting in the dining room? Maybe light in the bedroom and become the din of the Mishnah. But for us today, we learned the sugya properly, there is a reason to light in the dining room. Since, as we explained, it's not just Shalom Bayis, but it's covered Yom Kippur, where do you display covered? In the dining room. And Re'ez Pella, the Mordechai in Yuma Tavshin Chavhei, he writes, Madlikin Neiros al Shulchanam, v'orchen ha-shulchan k'may b'Shabbos. You have to set the table Erev Yom Kippur with the tishtach and everything appropriate for a Yom Tiv, k'may b'Shabbos, from the Ikri Shabbos Shabbosim. Twice the Torah calls Yom Kippur Shabbos Shabbosim. It doesn't mean put food on the table, but it means make it a nice Yom Tiv dika tablecloth. Frek the Beis Yosef, Tafreshut, any day ma mokum larichas hashulchan. What are you setting a table? You're not eating. But the Mordechai says you should set the table. The Maril, who I mentioned earlier, says the minig is to set the table Erev Yom Kippur. And that's the psak of the Ramah. The Ramah insists that should be done, that the table is set, because it's a Yom Tiv. Oh. And what's interesting is the same Maril that holds you don't make a bracha Erev Yom Kippur, set the table. Why? Because this covered Yom Kippur. And the Ramah, by us, quotes this. Latzia shulchanas b'Yom Kippur k'may b'Shabbos. So once we understand Yom Kippur has to have covered Yom Kippur, and you set the table, then it makes sense. Where does the place? On the dining room table. Pashat kipshutai, that's the place of covered Yom Kippur. Now I'll tell you a few halachas that are really a unique. Women light the typical neiros that burn for 3 hours, which is fine, because you light Erev Shabbos, and the women stay by the neiros, and the husband comes home an hour and a half later, and it's burning by the Suda, and everything is wonderful. Yom Kippur could be 3 hour neiros is not enough, and I'll explain why. In many homes, everybody goes to shul. If there's no young children at home, the men, women, and older children go to shul. So it's very possible the house is emptied out right after Hadlokas Neiros. You don't come home an hour after you left. Yom Kippur, typically 3 or 4 hours after you left, you come back. If the Neiros burned out, then you have a bracha levatala. You didn't enjoy the Neiros when you lit. You come home, they're gone. What are you making a bracha on? So in a house that there are children and the wife stays home and enjoys the Kedushas HaNeiros, they're home alone and they want to bring Yom Kippur in, so that's fine. But if no one stays home, you have to make sure either to light longer neiros, or those that use shemen zayis, add extra oil, make sure it's burning when you come home. Rather, whenever you leave the house alone, make sure it's safe. So if you do leave the house alone, make sure the neiros are safe. I'll tell you another interesting halacha, which rather I saw two of the earlier poskim and our poskim say this. It's the oldest shaila. You come into a dining room on a regular Erev Shabbos, there's a beautiful light chandelier burning, and you light neiros. What are you doing with your neiros? Shraga b'tir maya hanile. What are you gaining? You're not adding any extra light. The times of Chazal, they didn't have electricity, so every ner added more covered Shabbos, Oynik Shabbos, Shalom Bayis. But today we have a well-lit dining room. What are you adding with your neiros? So indeed, there are some that are makbid, that the wife lights in the dining room when the lights are off, and then either light goes on with a timer, or the husband puts on the lights. Some people have the women putting on the chandelier in the dining room, then lighting the neiros, and make the bracha on both the lights and the Neiros, so then the bracha goes on both. This way, at least, there's a purpose for the Hadlokas Neiros. However, many people are not makpid. The kash is a good kash. What are you lighting Neiros in a well-lit room? The teretz is you're right. Al shalom bayis, you're not adding with a few candles to a well-lit dining room. But al oinik Shabbos, you're sitting by a Suda and there's no Neiros, there's something missing. It's not the same Suda. So you light Neiros on the Shabbos table, not al shalom bayis, because you have lights, al oinik Shabbos. The problem is, Erev Yom Kippur, that there is no oinik Yom Kippur, there's no Suda. How could you light in the dining room when the lights are on? The reason of oinig Yom Kippur doesn't apply. There's no oinig on Yom Kippur. And the Debetzina Rav, Mechelekei Kufta Zav Sif Katan Yud Beis, has this ha'ar. But more so Rabbi Yashiv in the Ashriya Ish Chelek Gimel Amud Kuf Lamed, who feels that if the lights are on, you can't make a bracha on Hadlokas Neiros, because you're not adding anything with the Neiros. Rav Nosson Gestetten in the Sefer also points this out, that Shabbos you could be mekel, but Yom Kippur, what are you lighting Neiros for? But Poik Chazi Mayama Devar the Welt is mekel. I imagine the hezbollah is taka. There's no extra shalom bayis or oinig, but maybe it's covered. You're coming to a dining room with this well lit, but there's no Neiros on Yom Kippur. Something's missing. So it's not the covered of oinig, but it's the covered al covered Yom Kippur. No, it probably makes sense. Like the Ramah says, you should do extra chumas on Aseres Mei Tshuva. So if you want to be machmer, at least an Erev Yom Kippur to close the lights, or work it out that she lights when the lights are off. Avad, is a good reason for that. Rabbi Yashiv holds it's ma'akib. But the cheshbon is that Yom Kippur is not a regular, typical Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Shabbos. The next question is also ha'or and nifla. There's the old problem. If a woman's home alone, she lights Neiros in a dining room. So then the Neiros add Kavod Shabbos, Einik Shabbos, Shalom Bayis. But let's say you have company, the married children come. How could a second and third woman light on the same table? Whatever you need, you have with the first Neiros. And this is the Mechaber sheet in Reish Samach Gimel Siv Ches, that Beis or Gimel Balabatim cannot light on the same table. One lights in the dining room, one lights in the basement or upstairs. But once you have one set of Neiros, that's enough. The Ramah is mekel, and the reason is pashit, because every extra candle adds more shalom bayis. You could see better. It adds more einik Shabbos. You could see better. The problem is that the Debetzina Rav, a regular Shabbos that you're eating by the Suda, you could say, my Neiros gives me einik Shabbos. So basic in Balabatim you have on Shabbos as well. But Zakta Debetzina Rav is in the same tshuva. Erev Yom Kippur, once the mother lit on the table, how could the daughter light on the same table with the bracha? You're not adding shalom bayis, you have a chandelier. You're not adding kavod Yom Kippur, because you have already a light. You're not adding oinig, there's no suda. So he says, I'm very concerned about making a bracha als extra kavod Yom Kippur. Rabbi Yashiv in the Shvus Yitzchak Chelek Ches Amid Chav, is mekel. And he says, no, because for each person that lights, I guess he holds that that's their kavod Yom Kippur. But I would say that since there is no Suda, if the daughter is staying in a basement or upstairs and it's safe to light in their apartment, it would make sense on Erev Yom Kippur to light there. Regular Erev Shabbos, we light Makam Achila. But on Yom Kippur, there's no Makam Achila, it might make sense to light in their own apartment. Next Shaila, interesting, which is again to every single Shabbos and Yom Tov and Yom Kippur, we always make brachas oivel asiyasam. You make a bracha, you shake the lulav. Make a bracha, you eat the matzah. You make a bracha, you light Ner Chanukah. Why do we, when it comes to Erev Shabbos Neiros, first we light and then you make a bracha? Now you wake up. The Rambam holds you can't make a bracha once you did the mitzvah. And indeed, the Mechaber Shita in Beis Samach Gimel Hey, and that's the minig of many, many Svardim, that they make the bracha on Shabbos and then light the Neiros. But Ashkenazim, as we know, we first light and then make the bracha. What am doivel asiyasa? The teretz is we have a problem. If you make the bracha lahadik ner shel Shabbos it's not only a Birchas HaMitzvah, it's also a Kabbalah Shabbos. So once you make Kabbalah Shabbos, how do you go light? So therefore we first light and then make a bracha. Now the question is, on a regular Yom Tiv, that's not Chal B'Shabbos, we have the liberty of doing Kalacha. Let's make the bracha, Mekabel Yom Tiv goes into hate, and you're allowed to light a candle. You're not allowed to make a new fire, but you could take a candle and light another one. And that's why Yadua, the Prish's Rebbetzin, said people make a mistake. Yom Tiv is not Shabbos. You first make the bracha, and then you light. Okay, it's Yadua. The Magen Avraham says, light plug. You can't tell women Shabbos Hazai, Yom Tiv Hazai. We always light after the bracha. Is the bracha after, and Yom Tiv is a machloikis minhagim. Now, what's the halacha with Erev Yom Kippur? This coming Wednesday, Tuesday, say Ba'aleinu L'Taiva. So you'll say, well, Yom Kippur is a Yom Tiv. It's the biggest Yom Tiv. True, it's not Shabbos, but in this respect, it's Shabbos. Why? Because once you may say the Hadlokas Neiros Yom Kippur, you have a Kabbalah Yom Kippur, you can't light. So it comes out that the woman that on a regular Erev Yom Tov makes the bracha first, but Yom Kippur in this respect is like an Erev Shabbos. So therefore she should light and then make the bracha. Now, this is all that we light and then make a bracha, a woman that lights. The same Shulchan Aruch says, but men that light, whether it's an alman, a single, or a bacha that lights, he always lights after the bracha, regular oivel asiyasin. Why? Because typically a man goes to shul. I don't know, in those days maybe he went on a horse, today we drive to shul. So it's automatic, you're not being mekabel Shabbos with the Neiros. You're making a bracha Neiros Shal Shabbos, that's a regular Birchas HaMitzvah. So those men that light Neiros on Shabbos make the bracha first and then they light. But we'll soon see that Erev Yom Kippur, unless you have to drive to shul, so a man that lights, as we'll soon see, should make the Shechiyanu by the Neiros. Not in shul. We'll soon see why. Oy bazoi, obviously when he lights Neiros, he's being Mikabel, Itzume Shal Yom Kippur. So he has to do like the regular minig of women. First light the Neiros, then make the bracha Neiros Shal Yom Kippurim, Shechiyanu, and be Mikabel Yom Kippur. So it comes out that Yom Kippur is different than a regular Shabbos for a man that lights. Another unique feature of this Erev Yom Kippur Neiros, the women are trained that before you light Neiros Erev Shabbos, you put down chalas on the table. Why? Pashut. Because if you only have leichta on the table's a buses, you can't move the table. Okay. Now, you wonder how, if the problem with the table is it's a buses for the leichta, you have a tray, the leichta costs a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s. How does putting down 2 chalas outweigh the value of the Neiros? The answer is pashut. You're only putting down the Neiros als Oynik Shabbos to enhance those very chalas. So what's the ikka? The ikka of the Neiros is to enhance the chalas. So that's Minig Yisrael. You put down chalas and you're allowed to move the table when the Neiros go out. The question is, Erev Yom Kippur, the Isha that's first married is going to come to the table and do what? Put down chalas? There's no Suda. Leftover challah from the Suda Mafsekes has no pshat. That doesn't outweigh the Neiros. Oh, you'll be smart. You'll take the chalas from the Matzah Yom Kippur Suda. But weiter, that's not for now. Magen Avraham and Reish Ayin Zayin also doesn't even help. You need something that contends, that could be more important than the Neiros, the valuable Neiros. So if you have a chayil or cotton in the house that's going to eat a Suda, and don't forget, it's a Yom Tov Suda. If they have to eat, they have to say Alvi and benching. Oh, there's no Kiddush, but it's a Yom Tov Suda. So maybe their chalas is important enough to outweigh the Neiros, maybe. But in a regular case, so what are you going to do? Not much of an emergency. Even if the table becomes the muktzah, you're allowed to use the table. Muktzah, you're allowed to touch. You're allowed to sit on the table. You're allowed to learn on the table. The problem is if you want to move the table. To move the table, you have to make a basis for a heta. So when you come home from shul after davening Yom Kippur Nacht, you want to learn the table, gesundheit. The problem is, if you want to get very into the sugi, you're going to push the table, or the children want to have a football game, they want to move the table, then you have a problem. So then, the eitzah is, put down a sefer you're going to learn on Leil Yom Kippur. So then, the sefer, the mitzvah, limud HaTorah, that's what the table is for. Hopefully that will counteract the Neiros. But basically, on a regular Friday night, we might move the table to sweep after the Suda, or to make a Shalom Zacha, so you move the table. Typically, a Yom Kippur night, you don't move the table. But if someone wants to move the table, he has to make sure to make a basis to counteract the basel davaros. The bacha in the yeshiva that asked, where should he light the Neiros? Not in the dining room, it has no pshat. He should do, like we'll soon see the Gemara says to do, light it in Beis Medrash. The Gemara darshan the Rishonim quote the pasuk in Yeshaya, Ba'orim kabdu as Hashem. There's always a mitzvah of kavod Beis HaKnesses, we're lighting Neiros, and we'll soon see Yom Kippur, we like extra Neiros to show kavod for the Rebbeinu Shalom. So the bacha, the gabbai that lights in yeshiva for the entire yeshiva, lights in Beis Medrash with a bracha. Again, he'll make the bracha, he'll first light, make the bracha, shechayanu, and light in Beis Medrash. And that I found Rabbi Yashiv says this as well. And it's pashut, that's the best place to give kavod to Yom Kippur. Now, if he lights on a table in Beis Medrash, then you have a problem that the table becomes muktzah. So I told him, if you light on the Chazan's Amid, you have less of a problem. Why? Because every Friday afternoon, you light Neiros on the Chazan's Amid. Why doesn't it become muktzah? So either if you don't move the Amid, it's fine. But even if you want to move the Amid, since the Chazan's Amid has a siddur which the Chazan uses, and that's more important than the Neiros. That's what he's there for, that's his job. So the siddur counteracts the muktzah. So if you light on the Chazan's Amid, you have no problem of lighting there, and also it's not a problem of muktzah. When to light, remember Rabbi said this, the once a year that all agree that Tosefes is a Chiyav Deraisa is Erev Yom Kippur. By Shabbos, some learn from Yom Kippur, Al Yom Tiv is a big sugya, but Tosefes Yom Kippurim all agree is Deraisa. So to wait to the last minute, besides that you come into Yom Kippur via Yovan and Sukkah, but this is the mitzvah of Tosefes Yom Kippurim to add a few minutes. Rabbi Yash says at least 5 minutes to come in earlier. You know, it's tragic when you see people running into shul, it's mamashkia, and they didn't light the Yartzeit licht or the Gesundheit licht. I know that Chashav Talmid Chacham that was so distressed, he put a sign, do not light past certain, this amount of time. But the problem is people are so frazzled nerves running into shul, they don't look at the sign. And they end up lighting this minig after the shkia, which is the Himmel G'shreinish. You're talking about a Safek Deraisa. Besides, you're missing the mitzvah of Tosefes. So Yom Kippur needs Tosefes l'chol hadayis. Next question, Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos. Is there any difference in Hadlokas Neiros? So here we see something which l'chayr is a chiddush, but this is what the Gemara says. The same Gemara that the Mishnah says, Yom Kippur, it's a minig to light or not, and something dafka don't light, zok the Gemara in the same, that Psachim nun Gimel Amud Beis, but Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos, all agree you light Neiros out kavod Shabbos. The question is, I understand you have to light because it's Shabbos, but what about the concern of Shmira? Those that dafka don't light to keep Shmira, what about that? So the answer must be pashut. Since it's Shabbos, it's a regular Chiyav Hadlaka al Shabbos, because of your chashash of Shmira, you can't override a Chiyav D'Rabbanan of lighting Neiros on Erev Shabbos. So that's why all agree, Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos, you have to light out Shabbos. But the truth is, even that is not so pashut. Although the Gemara says to light Neiros Erev on Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos, there are Gedolei Rishonim, the Mordechai quotes the Sefer HaMitzvahs, that you light Neiros Erev Shabbos, Erev Yom Kippur, but no bracha. Why? There's no Suda. But the Maril, who in the same place, who says you don't light Erev Yom Kippur with a bracha, but Erev Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos, you do make a bracha. And that was the minig of the Gra. But what's interesting is, those that don't make a bracha on a regular Erev Yom Kippur, but Erev Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos make a bracha, what nusach do they say? So most poskim, the Levush, Matafrayim say, don't throw in Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur doesn't have a chiyuv to hadlaka. So you only make the regular nusach lahadik ner shel Shabbos. Because Yom Kippur is not mechayiv in hadlaka. But our minig is we make every Erev Yom Kippur a bracha. So Yom Kippur shechal b'Shabbos, we make both lahadik ner shel Shabbos v'shel Yom HaKippurim. Which leads us to the next question, a person that made a mistake. This coming Tuesday afternoon, the woman made the bracha lahadik ner shel Yom Tov, or lahadik ner shel Shabbos. So that's with chesed. If you made the bracha lahadik ner shel Yom Tov, all agree you're yoitza. Because Yom Kippur is a Yom Tov. It's a bigger Yom Tov than the regular Yom Tov, but it is a Yom Tov. If you lit and you said lahadik ner shel Shabbos, that's a machlokes of poskim. Some say it's Shabbos Shabbosin, it's even better. But the truth is, it's not Shabbos. I saw some that hold you have to make the bracha over. So best idea is to get the bracha straight the first time, but probably if you did say Shabbos, you were yotzei b'diavad. The real question that needs a share for itself, when it's Yom Kippur Shechal b'Shabbos, and you only said one of the two, you left out one, so the Maran Brisk has a tshuva in Chelik Beisim and Tzaddik Tes, as many others say, it's a little more complicated. Because if you lit only, let's say, look, you had ner shel Yom Kippur, you left out Shabbos, maybe you didn't light for Shabbos. So you have to light again for Shabbos. But you can't light once you makabel Yom Kippur, you have to get someone else to light. It's very complicated, so until further notice, don't leave out what you have to say. But it's really very complicated. The next inyan, which I just mentioned briefly, there's an inyan, Kivega, in the Mishnayos holds its merumas in a Mishnah, that the women light Neiros every Erev Shabbos. But the husband has to prepare the Neiros. Kivega says it's a Mishnah in the second parak in Shabbos, that 3 Averas Noshim Meisais, Chala, Nida, and Hadlokas Neiros. Correct, Kivega, why is the Mishnah consistent? Chala, Nida, Ner. Why Hadlokas Neiros? So Kivega, on the Mishnah, this is the merumas for the Zoya, that the woman only has to light the Neiros. The man has to prepare the Neiros. So therefore, the Mishnah stresses Hadlokas Neiros. That's her job. Your job is preparing. So I saw the Ktziamata and Sivkot and Ches quotes a Ruach Chaim, that since the reason that the husband prepare the Neiros is als a kapara, so Erev Yom Kippur we need an extra kapara. Make sure not to forget that minig of preparing the Neiros. Next group of questions is the Shmira Lich that we said, which is really a Beferishim Mishnah. Yes, it's totally a minhagim, that's what the Mishnah says, but the Yishalmi says that the better minig is, yes, to light this special Shmira Licht. This light that we do is not for the dining room, that's Yom Kippur Neiros. This dafka should be put in the bedroom. Now, there's no chiyuv to disturb one's sleep, you could put it on the side. Also, the poskim say it's lav dafka a light. Some people are scared to sleep in a room with a light. If you put a night light, an electric light is also good. The ikka is just a reminder that tonight's Yom Kippur. But what's interesting is the Maril, who holds you don't have to light Erev Yom Kippur Neiros. He says, but don't forget to light the Ner b'cheder mishkavod. That's a Mishnah. That's the Mishnah Makom Shenahagu that we do. Then the Maril adds, now listen to this. He says, but those that light Erev Yom Kippur light, not like my Shita, they do 2 kulas. Now listen to what he says. They only light in the dining room because they want to be from and be Yamkayim the mitzvah of Erev Yom Kippur. So they have 2 problems with that. They have lights in the dining room, so the man sees his wife, and Chalila has a taiva. Then it comes to the bedroom, there's no light there. So you made the problem even worse. So if you do light in the dining room, certainly you have to make sure to light the regular b'ched, the mishkaveh, like the Mishnah requires. And the Ramah, Tafresh Yud, Siv Aleph, quotes this Maril. The point is that this light that we do in the bedroom is a din ha-Mishnah, the Shulchan Aruch, and certainly for us that we light in the dining room, that light seems to be a chiyuv. What to me was inspiring, the Taz asked the Kasha, if the wife is not tahira, what's the chashash? Zok the Taz, yeah, but midei hira la yotza, v'yavatel machshavte tahira b'yom hazeh. To keep Kedushas Yom Kippur, every moment is so precious, you can't jeopardize. So there's no chashash of a serious Aveira, but even Hirurim on Yom Kippur is a terrible tragedy. So Lamaisa, that's why it seems, and this is Pashit, that there are 2 Hadlokas Neiros that we do Erev Yom Kippur. The regular Erev Yom Kippur and lighting in the bedroom, that's als the Mishnah. The Magen Avram seemed to be aware of those that don't light in the bedroom, and he tries to justify the minhag, and he says that in the dining room, taka, there's lights, it's a problem. When you get to the bedroom, he says the wife goes to sleep first, and the husband goes to sleep afterwards. By then, there's no hero. But he says, because I wrote just the Miyashiv the minhag, Lamaisa yesh lahachmir. So Lamaisa, the Gedolei HaPoiskim, the Ramah, the Maril, the Mishnah, Yerushalmi, this is a minhag that should be kept, to light a special light in the bedroom. Mr. Berg and Sifkatnei is makel. If the ish is a nida, you could be a little more makel. But minhag Yisrael is to light that light, of course, in a safe place, doesn't deserve to sleep, and a light is lav dafka on there. Even electric light is also good. What's beautiful is the Sfas Emes quotes Akasha on Shas and a lichtigkeit in the whole sugya. The Pri Chadash asks a question: light the rush that holds as a regular mitzvah of Neiros Erev Yom Kippur. Why does the Mishnah say Makam Shanahagu as if it's totally in a minhag? You have to light Al Erev Yom Kippur. What do you mean? Al Makam Shanahagu? Zog the Sfas Emes, you say that mach lichtig the whole sugya. If the only mitzvah, the Vada is a regular mitzvah d'Rabbanan of Erev Yom Kippur Neiros. But for that, a 3 or 4 hour nair is enough. As long as you have a nair, either during the time when they're in shul or afterwards. But for the Mishnah's licht, it has to burn kol halayla. So therefore, this just reaffirmed what I thought was pashit, that there are 2 mitzvahs on Erev Yom Kippur. The regular Erev Yom Kippur licht that has to burn a few hours, you have a nair. But the bedroom light is kol halayla. But there's a third ner Erev Yom Kippur. And this is what the Welt calls the Gesunter Licht, or the ner Bari, which probably has more than a half a dozen reasons in Gedolei Rishonim why we do this. The Mordechai in Yuma Tavshin Chav Gimel says that since it's a Gemar Din, you have to light a ner. The Maril adds a little hezbah, because ner Hashem nishmas Adam, and Lamaisa and the Mari Vayel in the Tshuva says, since it's a Yom Hadin and they're being done on the Neshama that's called Ner and Neshama interchangeable, you have to light Ner al Tzchus. The Kolbai in Siman Chav Ches explains that Lamaisa, the Barishim says, you want me to watch your Neshama? Light Neiros. I'll watch your Neshama. Ner and Neshama are interchangeable. Also, Zakti Kolbai, since you want to learn, probably afterwards, or you want to daven or learn, but you want to have Neiros with what to learn or daven, you have to have Neiros kol halayla. Of course, you have no problem, Shemayat, you have the right Ner, or you have a Shomer. Also, covered Hashem, covered Beis HaKnesses, and as we're looking for schusim, you add Neiros to a shul, is more schusim. V'oid lahavdol oisa ner b'matzoi Yom Kippur. You light a gezunter licht to have what to make a bracha on Matzah Yom Kippur. We'll soon explain that. The Magen Avram quotes the Mari Vayel that since the Torah was given or completed on Yom Kippur because the Luchos were given and Ner Mitzvah V'Torah, or we light Neiros on Yom Kippur to commemorate the Kabbalas HaTorah of Yom Kippur. And after, plus the Maril in Sif Ois Yud Gimel, that there are 2 Machevarim to a man, and there's Ruach and Neshama, that adds up to 250. Keneged Ner, that's 250. So you notice a half a dozen reasons in Gedolei Poiskim and Rishonim, and the Ramah quotes this emphatically in Siv Dalid, like Hagin Shekol Ish, Godel Aikatan, Oisin Leiner. The Ramah's time, the minhag was every person in the house, man or woman, boy or girl, adult or child, lit a Ner. Grada the Magen Avram, Sifkat and Gimel says, since one of the reasons, the Iker reason is Al Kabbalas HaTorah, women don't light. Okay. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but in later Dairis, the minhag only became that the Rosh Habayis, there's one Ner Bari for the entire family. But what I wanted to mention, someone once asked me, he says, only my father lights the Gesund Licht, doesn't he want me also to be Gesund? Has nothing to do with Gesund. I mentioned 6 reasons probably why you light it. It's not out the school for Gesund. I imagine, I hope I'm not wrong, but I imagine, why do we call it a Gesund Licht? Because the next words in the Ramah is, you light a Ner Neshama for the deceased. So you want to differentiate, so this is called the Ner Neshama, and this is called the Gesund Licht, Bari. But it's nothing to do with the school for Gesund. Where to light this Gesund Licht? So this is interesting. If you learn the Rishonim, they lit it in shul. because that gave covet ba'orim kabdu Hashem. But there's another reason why Yidden typically light Neiros, these gesunde Licht in Shul. The Ramah says if the Ner goes out on Yom Kippur, you better make sure to relight it and be makabel never to play around with the Neiros. It seemed like there's something wrong if the Ner goes out on Yom Kippur. The Levush in Siv Gimel says if a Ner goes out on Yom Kippur, Simin Rahu, it's a bad Simin. Now, people don't want to have a Simin Ra waiting for them on Matzah Yom Kippur when they come home from Shul. So the minig became, you gave it to the shamus, or you gave it to someone to light it in Shul for you, but you don't know its whereabouts. So you couldn't even know if it burned the entire Yom Kippur or not. So we had 2 miles of lighting in Shul. Number one, it added extra light, and don't forget, in those days before electricity, every candle added light for davening. So it was a mitzvah, it's covered, tefillah covered by Knesset, and also you avoided the bad simon. The later Paiskim, the Chayyodam says, Mr. Brewer says, the Aleph Lamat already says this, it's only a bad simon if it went out in an unnatural way. Let's say it was a big candle, and somehow it just went out. But let's say the wind blew it, the child ran by, someone opened the door, or very often you buy these yard site licht, it says 26 hours, but it doesn't burn 26 hours. I've seen this more than once. Agav, the eight says put a little olive oil, as much as you could fit in, then it probably will burn extra. But if you buy a candle that only burns 24 hours and it doesn't go for 26 hours, it's not a kasha. So it's not a bad simon. And Mr. Brewer says, don't worry. The Aruch HaShulchan says, Amma Nifcha should not be worried about these things. So the concern as the Ner goes out is no longer existent. Plus, lighting in Shul is not really covered basic Knesset. They have plenty of lights. So the truth is you could light wherever you want, either at home or in Shul. But I would say, if you see it's getting late and time to get to Shul, it's already Suffolk, Tosefes Shabbos, by all means light at home. There's absolutely nothing wrong. The Siman Raz, if you light on Yom Kippur, and there, that's Taka Siman, Loi Toiv. The fourth Ner, which is also in Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah quotes it, based on the kolboi, there's a minig to light and a neshama la'aviv ulu'imai shemesu. Rather, the minig was one candle for both parents. Why do you light this ner? So the Mishnah Berurah quotes from the kolboi, l'chaper aleim. It's a schus, it's a kapara for the mace. Mishnah Berurah says, the Levush says there's a nachas ruach for the mace. It reminds me of a different halacha. The Shulchan Aruch in Tafresh Chaf Aleph Vav says there's the minig to give tzedakos on Yom Kippur on behalf of the Mason. And the Ramah says that's why you say Yiskar and you give tzedakah. In fact, Mr. Brewer says Adav Nifla. That's why it's called Yom Kippurim Lashon Rabim. It's a Yom of Kapara for the Chayin and for the Mason. That's why it's Lashon Rabim. But anyhow, the point is that the minig of lighting the yard site lich is Rishonim on Yom Kippur. Now, many people light every time they say Yiskar, but that's not in the Shulchan Aruch, and that's not really like in the Rishonim, like we mentioned. I speculated, first of all, many people don't like a Yiskar lamp on a regular Yom Tiv, and the Paiskim wonder if you light it on Yom Tiv, maybe it's not really important. So I thought that really the real Chiyuv was stated in Ramah, what says in the Rishonim is on Erev Yom Kippur for the Mason. The minig became, I say a Yiskar on a regular Yom Tiv, why not light the licht? I think I found the Ksaf Soif and Simon Samachay. I think it means to say that the minig on a regular Yom Tiv comes from Erev Yom Kippur. But it comes out that on Erev Yom Kippur there are 4 Neiros that we light. The Ner Yom Kippur, the Ner Shmir in the bedroom, the Ner Bari, and now the Ner Yard Site. Actually could be a 5th Ner that we light Erev Yom Kippur. It's a very fayadik Yom Tov, as you could see. The 5th, the Kolbei says we light a Ner for Havdalah. Now let me explain. Every Matzoi Shabbos we use a Ner. Why? Because Ner fire was created on Matzoi Shabbos. It has nothing to do with Havdalah per se. It's not Havdalah. It is Matzoi Shabbos. That's why this past Tisha B'Av Shechal B'Shabbos we made the bracha on Ner on Matzoi Shabbos. And Havdalah first made on Sunday, because it's a Matzoi Shabbos Dikamitz. That's why Matzoi Yom Tiv, you never use a Ner for Havdalah. Now the Kashi is, so why Yom Kippur, Matzoi Yom Kippur, do we light a Ner? This year it's Wednesday night. It wasn't created Wednesday night. The teretz is the Yom Kippur Ner is not because it was created, but because Ner was also to use. So to show now we could use it, we take what's called a Ner Sheshavas, that you didn't use the entire Yom Kippur, and you use it. Now, Oy Bazoi, to light a match and make a fire on Matzah Yom Kippur has no pshat. You can't make a bracha if it's not Ner Sheshavas. But here's the catch. A Ner that was lit le-kavoid, not lahoyer, is not a good enough Ner Sheshavas. If you did it for kavod, it's not good enough. And the poskim say that today, Al Kapanim, in shul, that we have so many lights, when you light a Ner in shul, it's not lahoyer. It's lekavod. So you can't use a Ner in shul for a Ner Sheshavas. So that's why the Kolba, and Mr. Burr quotes this as, the best dates is light a special lich that you're doing it lahoyer. It should be for Avdallah. This way you have no problem. We used to have an Eitzah, the pilot light, that burnt the whole Yom Kippur. But today that's basically illegal. So you have to make sure you have a light from Matzah Yom Kippur. I have an idea, I think it's pretty emes. You take the Ner Bari, the Gesundte Licht, that you could put in the bedroom, als the Shmira also. You're allowed to overlap. But since you're putting it in the bedroom, lahoyer, for the Shmira, so now you could use it on Havdalah also. Just make sure you have enough olive oil to make the supplement, make sure that it burns by a 2 or 3 day licht. But once you put it into the bedroom, lahoyer, then lahoyer, that should be an eitzah. But I must be honest, the Bialach in Reish Tzadik Ches says if it's made lahoyer and the kavid, he brings a machlokes rishayim if it's good enough. So maybe I would say that if you take a candlelight from that, that's probably another Tzati Mekel, but basically it is perfectly okay to take the Ner Bari and put that in the bedroom so you have two purposes with one thing. If it's late and a person forgot to light any of these Neiros, Ner Yom Kippur, Ner Bari, Ner bedroom, Ner Yartzeit, so if it's still real Bein Hashmashos and a person feels this is my minig, I don't want to give it up, you're allowed to call a goy because Bein Hashmashos you could do what's needed. But once it became Yom Kippur, chas v'shalom to call a goy, Yom Kippur you can't do malacha deraisa, Rabbi Yakov. The goyin in Ma'asirav Reishut Beis, and more Yehuda more forcefully in the Chuvas Lamed Gimel, Shraich Mamash Chai v'Kayim, what they used to light Neiros. Don't forget, in the old days they didn't have lights. It came Nila, it was dark shul. So they used to call a goy to light Neiros. So the goy says chas v'shalom to call a goy. Now Yehuda spells out, the Baruch says, Mi bikei zois miyet, who needs Yanila? Just say by heart, but don't light Neiros. But certainly to light Neiros for any one of these things, after the Zman, once already it's Yom Kippur, Chalila Aydei Akum. Interesting question, a woman, don't ask me how, forgot to light Neiros Erev Yom Kippur. Does she have the knas to light an extra Ner, Kol Yamel? So the emes is, on Yom Tiv, yesh makil. I'm not saying that's the way possible. Some hold, if you forgot to light on Erev Yom Tiv, there's no knas. Why? Because Yom Tiv, it's never an emergency. You could always light on Yom Tiv. So there's no knas if you forgot. But that swear will not apply to Erev Yom Kippur, because you can't light on Yom Kippur. So the only tzad to be makel is that some shittas hold that there's no chiyuv. The Mordechai and the Maril. But the truth is, L'didan, we paskin, there is a chiyuv, so probably she would have to light a ner, kol yamel. 2 more points I wanted to mention. Each are negeya, each is really part of a different shiyuv, but negeya l'inyaneinu. The question is, as we said earlier, when you make a bracha, lahadik ner shel Shabbos, that is Kabbalah Shabbos. The old problem of a woman has to go to Sheva Brachas, Lamashal Friday night, and it's too far to walk. Can she light Neiros and make it tonight? I'm lighting Neiros. The brach is on the mitzvah, but I'm not Mekabel Shabbos yet. So this is 2 days in Reish Samach Gimel, Sif Yud. One sheet is it's Shabbos, you can't light with a Tanai at Shabbos. The second sheet tells yes, you can make it Tanai. The Tanai is I'm lighting with the brach als the mitzvah, but not yet Shabbos. So the Paiskim say, since it's Machlokes Rishonim, only make this Tanai b'mokoim tzoyrich. So the Paiskim say, generally, if there's an older woman can't walk, that's considered a tzoyrich. Yom Kippur is the time that people make this Tanai. They always daven in the shul that's of their choice, and they go literally the extra mile, very often, or 2, and you can't walk both back and forth. So a person that cannot walk back and forth, the Rav will say, if you want, you could light b'tanai and go to shul, and then be Makabel Yom Kippur, you get to shul. Now that's good, but, and here's the catch, the Orchos Chaim, the Spinker Reish Samach Gimel Vav, and the Pri Yitzchak Bey's test, Mr. Bura Tafra Yeshua test, Sif Cotton Dal is almost mefurish. If you make the bracha, you can make it tonight. Because the bracha is going, a Birchas HaMitzvah is not Yom Kippur. But once you say Shechiyanu, Lazman Hazeh, then you'll be Makabel, Itzumei Shel Yom. So you can't make a Shechiyanu and then make it tonight. So what you have to do is make it tonight, not make the Shechiyanu, and you'll do it together with all the men in shul. The woman, if she goes to shul, with all the men in shul, will make the Shechiyanu. Then, when you do it at the part of the Kol Nidre Tefillah. Another interesting nafkamina is when to make the bracha. If this Isha, or we'll soon see a man, the same thing, if a person lights B'tanai, then you're not Makabel Yom Kippur. L'chari, you should do over L'asiyasan. Make the bracha, and then light. You can't lose, it's not Yom Kippur. But it's probably totally in the machlokes on a regular Yom Tiv if we say Loi Plug. So if you light on Yom Tiv bracha first, Erev Yom Kippur, make the bracha first. I saw an interesting limud schus, two svarim, that you could take the light, make the Shechiyanu, and a Tanai will help. Why? Listen to this. The Shechiyanu is not going on the Yom Tiv. It's going on the mitzvah of Hadlokas Neiros. Just like on Sukkot, you could, as they state in Bavli and Yishalmi, you could make a bracha on building of the Sukkah. Maybe this bracha is going on the lighting of the Neiros. So you're making a bracha on the Neiros, and in Shul, and later, when you Makabel Teisef Yom Kippurim, you could make another bracha, I guess, Shechiyanu. I don't know if you do that or not, but at least it's not a violation of Kabbalah's Yom Kippur. I don't think they'll make another bracha, but at least they could justify the bracha. To me, this was a chiddush nifla, because as we saw, al Rishayim anu mitztayrim. There's a shayla if there is a mitzvah Erev Yom Kippur, and Gedolei Hashem, you don't make a bracha. But how do you go make that into a bracha and a shechiyanu on that? It's not like the other mitzvahs that are chiyuvim l'chol hadayis. So we'll stick with what the Paiskim say. Shechiyanu is later in shul. An isha or an ish that lights Neiros Erev Yom Kippur at home and says shechiyanu, it's Yom Kippur. So make sure to take off the leather shoes before Hadlokas Neiros. I mean, technically you could throw it off as you're making the bracha, but that's not the way you make a bracha. Once you're making a bracha in Makabel Yom Kippur, you should not be wearing leather shoes. So obviously the eitzah is to take off the shoes before, put on the Yom Kippur footgear, and then you can make the bracha, the shechiyanu, and it's itzumei shel yom. Of course, you can't drink or eat afterwards because it's mamish regular Yom Kippur. And Achrei Chaviv, the Shechiyanu bracha is unusual. As we said, Erev Yom Kippur is one big question if you could make a Shechiyanu. Zok the Gemara in Erevin, since there's no kais, how could you make a Shechiyanu? Our minig, recorded in Shulchan Aruch Tafreish Yotes, is to make a bracha on the Yom. It's not Stama Yom, it's Yom HaMutzar V'lo Yechad, it's the biggest day of the year, it's the biggest Yom Tiv of the year. But here we come to another unusual aspect that's unique to Yom Kippur. Mitzad halacha, on a regular Yom Tiv, when is the preferred time to make a Shechiyanu? By Kiddush. The Gemara says by a Kais. The minig has evolved, it's not in the Gemara, that women make a bracha, Erev Sukkot, Pesach, Shavuos, Rosh Hashanah, by the Neiros. Now that has been challenged by Gedolei HaPoskim. Where's your Kais? The Gemara says you make a Shechiyanu on Kais. How do you make a Shechiyanu on the Neiros? And taka many Svardisha and some Chasidisha don't make a bracha by Kiddush, by the Neiros, only by Kiddush. But many women make a bracha by the Neiros. Why? Because that's their mitzvah. That's when they feel Yom Tivdik. But on a regular Yom Tiv, which is the better minig, Neiros or Kais? Avada Kais. Yom Kippur is Punt Fakir. The women have an edge over the men. Why? There is no Kais. What would be the best place to make the Shechiyanu? When you do a mitzvah Chag, that's the Neiros. So really the right place is by the Neiros. But since we men don't like Neiros, so we rely on about the Lavush, and Tafreish Yotes, a beautiful Lavush. He says you make a Shechiyanu on the Ikka of the Yom Tiv. The Ikka of Yom Kippur is davening. No eating, no drinking, davening. So we make on the davening, the women make on the real mitzvah Yom on the Neiros. So it comes out, Rabbi Yisai, and I saw this in 3 of the Heintige Paiskim, that let's say a man or a bacha, Shiva bacha, that lights Neiros on Erev Yom Kippur, and he's Mekabel Yom Kippur with the Shechianu, he should make the Shechianu by the Neiros. So he'll be like the women in this respect. When he comes to shul, he should remember not to repeat it. But since that's the real time for the Shechianu, he should say it then. Fakert, an Isha that makes a Tanai and doesn't make a Shechianu by the Neiros is giving up the preferred Shechianu. Okay, she will have to light it. She'll have to make the Shechianu in shul. What to me was even a bigger chiddush, the Neshei Svar, the Sfardish women that do not make a bracha, Shechianu by Neiros of other Yom Tovim, do make the Shechianu by Neiros Erev Yom Kippur. And it's beautiful. I think it's pashut, because that's the preferred place. Now, a single girl should not forget the Shechianu. She's lo shtikl karech mikam v'kman. Her mother makes the Shechianu at home. Father makes it in shul. So if she goes to shul, let her say it in shul with the men. If she doesn't go to shul, say it sometime, either with the mother, or sometime don't forget that. And probably most important of all, this Shechianu is unique. It's the only time we make a bracha on the Yom. Why? Because the Yom is Nishtam HaYom. The Mishnah Seif Tainus says that's the biggest Yom Tiv of the year. I saw the Esab Shlomo Zalman Oyebach once, on a random day, what's your happiest moment of the year? Shlomo Zalman was the picture perfect of Simchas Chaim Kayadu Alakol. He was always happy, but when was your happiest moment of the year? So he responded, when I make the Shechianu Erev Yom Kippur. I'm going into such a day, that's the happiest moment of my year. So I gave meaning to it. The Sharish Avodah writes, you should make this the Shechianu b'simcha v'haido atzuma. The Pelayoyitz is lashon simcha rabba she'ein kamoya, because we have this Greise Tag Yom Kippur, Yom HaMutzar v'loy echad, the one day of the year. So whenever you say Shechianu, make the Shechianu b'simcha tag, which b'zaycha the Maksiv v'tayim v'lanu chal Yisrael, amen v'amen.
B'shem Egen Shir Talak to the big Yasher Kach, Rabbi Smith for today's important share. Gemachsim Tova to everyone. Rabbi Smith will be speaking Be'ez Hashem next Sunday, Erev Sukkos. And he's being Chol Hamoed Thursday? What? And the first day Chol Hamoed at 12 o'clock. V'nani ben HaKash Shemot HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakis Yisrael Figure Hibram Tar Mitzvah Shenem Adonai Chofetz Aman Tzidka Yagul Torah V'Yader.
That's it.
If anyone has a Lexus SUV in front of shul, they're trying to build a sukkah, please move it. Smith will give a sikkim of today's share in 5 minutes. The Shir Erev Sukkot is 10 o'clock, the Shir Chol Hamoed is 12 o'clock.
minutes. Okay, so I'll take 45 minutes. Not for me anyway. Thank you. Good job. Enjoy that. Have a nice trip.
That was oh, you know.
One thing to tell you, don't say hello anymore, you're a big shot. You don't come to me, you know. Where's that from? No, you don't come visit me. Oh, your brother's here. You used to come every day. Also, I'm not around.
Four or 5 ounces considered also.
Where you going? So what are you taking? You want to go out? What are you taking? Nothing. Zilch. Zero. I know you 50 pounds. 50 pounds.
How said I was there? I made a couple.
You don't want to go to see him? Nothing.
Place this guy.
You don't go on this 2 weeks. Country will place the hold on.
Really it is.
Shafsy. He doesn't go out. That's what he does. He just tell me what he does. He asked, I told you, he said, come to Okay, good. Friday, 12 o'clock. No, I'm late. Friday, 12 o'clock. Stop.
I tell you, his father.
Every once in a while, someone puts up a sign.
But after, you know, it's very funny. I myself also make sense. She's calling me with questions. Ashkot doesn't care. He's relying on someone else. Like someone says, "Oh, I heard something." I'm not just getting
It's the better air. Once the Torah, that's the real Torah. The place is just go. Just go. We're getting it for Shabbos. Wait till Kiddush. Say to go to the Kaisel to daven is not a Torah. Let's be real.
Okay.
You can't walk. She can't walk. Yeah. So you can't watch her. You just
Rabbi Smith is going to say the secret of today's share.
Just to review what we learned today, Bez Hashem, Yom Kippur is definitely unique. Not only that it's Mishnah and Tainus, it's the biggest Yom Tiv, but the Hadlokas Neiros Erev Yom Kippur is not like the regular Shabbos and not like the regular Yom Tiv. We paskin, like most Rishonim, that there's a chiyuv, a regular chiyuv Hadlokas Neiros on Yom Kippur, like there is on a regular Erev Yom Tiv. The reason is, even though there's no Einig Yom Kippur, but there's Shalom Bayis and there's covered Yom Kippur. And so much so that there's a chiyuv to light that we can make a bracha. In other words, it's a regular Yom Tiv, or like a regular Shabbos, and there's a chiyuv to make a light with a bracha. Make sure that you light with Neiros, that you'll have anah. There's a long enough Neiros when you get home, they're still burning, or people are home, so then the regular Neiros is okay. We set the table like a Yom Tiv, not with plates, but with a nice tablecloth, and put the Neiros on top of it. The place to light is in the dining room. If you want to move the table on Yom Kippur, then make sure that the table is not muktzah. So you have to put down something that is valuable to you on Yom Kippur, a sefer, or a woman will have her machzor, or a tilim, whatever it is, put it on the table before you light, or before Bein HaShmoshes, so then the table will be a basis for the heta, as well as to the yissa. If you're just using the table to say, to daven, to learn on it, and you're not moving it, then you don't have to worry about muktzah, even though it is muktzah, because muktzah is also moving, but not in negiyah. If it's possible, it's kedai to have the lights off when the Isha makes the bracha on the Neiros Erev Yom Kippur, more than a regular Shabbos. If it's possible, a few families should not light on the same table. They should light in different places, but Lamaisa, there's what to be Saimach, to light on the table. On a regular Shabbos, we light and then make the bracha. Yom Tiv, there are different minhagim. Some say Oyvel Asiyasam on Yom Tiv. You have the option of doing that. But Yom Kippur, although it's a Yom Tiv, not Shabbos, since it is Yom Kippur Asab Malacha, all Ashkenazim would light and then make the bracha. A man that's not makabel Yom Kippur with the Neiros, or not makabel Shabbos with the Neiros, lights Oyvel Asiyas and first makes the bracha and then he lights. A bacha in the yeshiva, if he's staying in the yeshiva and he's ready to kabel Yom Kippur, he lights in Beis Medrash with the bracha and says Shechiyanu, and then it's Itzumei Shel Yoim. A Neiros that honor a Chazin's Amid, do not make the Amid to stand the Muktzah, because the Siddur prevents it from becoming a basis for Heta. Light a few minutes before Shkia, don't forget, Tosefes Yom Kippurim all agree is Deraisa. Yom Kippur Shechal B'Shabbos, the Minig Yisrael is, we make the both bracha and both, Neil Shel Shabbos, the Shel Yom Kippurim. If a person made a mistake and on Yom Kippur said the word Yom Tiv, or Shabbos instead of Yom Kippur. There's what to be Saimach on to keep the bracha. If you left out one on Yom Kippur Shechal B'Shabbos, that's a big tumult. The husband should prepare the Neiros, as we said, that's part of the kapara that he needs on every Erev Shabbos, but Erev Yom Kippur certainly. There is a minig, a shmira light that we call it in the bedroom. Any light or electric light is good. I forgot to mention, if you have a hall light that's on and you keep the bedroom door open, that's also good enough. The ikk is that there should be some light in the room over the night. As we said, the minig, there's another minig to have this, what we call the ner bori, the gesunte licht. It is not necessarily, if you don't, that school for gesund, we had probably half a dozen reasons why it's done, and that the minig used to be to light in shul to give more cover to the shul. Today the shuls are well lit. You can light it either in shul or at home. Incidentally, if the light does burn out before the end of Yom Kippur, it's not at all a bad siman chas v'sholem. The fourth ner is the ner neshama that the Ramah brings, which is nachas and kapar for the parents. Children have to remember that parents are no longer alive. They need peklach to be sent, and this is one of them. There's the schusim that we do throughout the year, especially Yom Kippur. The fifth ner, some light an Havdalah ner, that it should burn a whole Yom Kippur, especially lahoyer, to use it on Matzah Yom Kippur as a ner sheshavas. You could call a guy to light any of these neiros only when it's bein hashmoshes, but once it becomes laila, chalila to call a guy. Lighting any of the neiros except for the ner Yom Kippur is not Kabbalah's Yom Kippur. If you light the yard site licht or the ner bori, does not mean it's Yom Kippur, so it's not Kabbalah's Yom Kippur. A woman who forgot to light Neiros Erev Yom Kippur should light an extra ner. To light with a Tanai, you could light with a Tanai, but then it's not Yom Kippur, there's no Shechiyanu. Take off the shoes before you light Neiros L'Shem Yom Kippur. Another put on the Yom Kippur shoes, then say the Bracha and Shechiyanu, and then it's Itzumei Shel Yom. Those that light Neiros with the Bracha and Makabel Yom Kippur should say the Shechiyanu by the Neiros, man or woman, that's the preferred place, and then do not repeat it in shul. The Sharatzian says one Shechiyanu was enough. A single girl should say Shechiyanu sometime, and the ikka is the simcha that we should have in the Shechiyanu bracha. It should be the happiest moment of the year.